you guys. Hope you all had a very, very Merry Christmas or whatever it was that you celebrated.
Yeah.
Remember when we did the review for Serpent and the Rainbow, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I said that we were going to do another Wes Craven movie because Shudder had added a bunch. So the time has come that we are doing another Wes Craven movie. This is The People Under the Stairs.
Yeah, I always got this one wrong, the title and everything. Jenny was making fun of me. Like I was an old man.
Well,
I was like, what, huh? People under the what? Children under the in the house? Children in the walls? What is this?
We were watching this on Shudder. It's like, I saw this movie like a bunch of it. It came out in like 1991. And I saw it a bunch of times back then. I think I saw it in the theater, and then I saw it a bunch of times on cable. But I guess you didn't see it when it came out.
No, I was in the Army.
So when we were watching it on Shudder last night, he was like, starts watching it, and he's like, what is this called again? It's like the children under the stairs, the children on the stairs, or something like that.
Yeah. She started laughing at me.
And I said, no, it's the people under the stairs. And I said, and I don't know if I've told this story before, but I think the tone of his voice reminded me of, and this shows how long ago this was and why I still like vividly remember it. When Jurassic Park, the first one, came out in the theater, which was what, 1990, 1991?
Long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So me and my friend Jen went to see Jurassic Park. Now, right behind us sat this very elderly couple.
People in their like 80s probably.
They were super old.
Yeah.
And so we're watching the movie and everything like that, and the old guy, he had a cane and everything. And
he had a Rex Harrison hat.
Probably.
Okay.
I don't think he had any headwear, but
okay.
But he apparently had no idea what was going on in the movie, or if he did, he was like really proud of himself, so he would like announce it to the theater at large. So he just like pretty much he's going like to his poor wife next to him, who's like, "Who's this now? What's this guy's name? Oh, he's gonna be at the door." And then it's like, you remember the part where like they put the goat out like as bait, like for the Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever it was, and it's like the goat gets taken. He goes very, very loudly, "It ate the goat!" And I turned around, I was like, "Thank you, sir."
Yeah.
Thank you for fucking. It was just so funny. So it's like I remembered it, and for many years afterward, like me and my friend Jen, like every now and then, just at random, we'd go, "It ate the goat!" It's like really loud.
He thought he was the main attraction. He thought he was the movie.
Well, I think like I said, the thing is, I think the thing with these people that go to the theater like that, I think he doesn't really know what's going on, and it's like,
right.
I think they're kind of deaf too, and they don't realize how loud they're talking, maybe, because he was asking his wife, like,
who's this now?
Who's this? And it's funny because
she told me the whole thing. Yeah.
Because sometimes he sounds exactly like that.
She starts fucking with me like I'm this old man.
He does it in the theater too, and somebody's, am I supposed to know who that is?
Yeah. She gets mad at me.
And I'm like, would you shut up?
Yeah.
It's like, I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But it's like really funny.
Fucking with me.
So I am, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so we were watching this movie last night.
Movies make you mad sometimes. Somebody will show up and like, who the fuck is this? My sister knows. Did I miss something?
I'm like, yeah, you did.
She's like, they don't know how to write a movie,
Well, yeah, they do, because everybody else knows who that is.
Okay.
You just didn't.
All right.
So yeah, the same thing happened with this movie, and he couldn't remember the title. And I said,
couldn't remember the title.
I sound just like It Ate the Goat guy.
Yeah.
But yeah. So The People Under the Stairs came out in 1991.
It's a horror movie. It's pretty good.
It's like kind of a horror adventure movie. It's weird to say, but it's almost kind of like, I saw this one review that said it's like a kind of a gory reverse Home Alone.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
It's about some burglars break into this creepy old house, and it turns out, there's a couple there, and they got this kid, and it's like a daughter, and they kind of abuse it, and then it turns out there's a bunch of people living inside the walls and underneath the stairs like a bunch of rats, and then it turns out they're feeding people. They're feeding people to these human beings that they're raising, they're keeping inside the walls. It's a weird premise.
Yeah, they're
dude running around in a gimp outfit with a shotgun,
which is funnier to me because now this movie, like I said, Shudder added 3 Wes Craven movies. They added Serpent and the Rainbow, they added this one, and they added Shocker. Now I also rewatched Shocker, which I had seen back in the day but didn't remember that much about. I will say right here that Shocker did not age very well. Like, for some reason I was watching it, it just seemed like a mess, and I couldn't really it didn't really keep my interest in stuff, because I love Wes Craven, but then I'd kind of forgotten that movie, and I was like, oh, maybe this is like, a forgotten gem, and maybe I forgot how good it was. Yeah, that wasn't the case. However, This movie was actually way better than I remembered. And I liked it back in the day because I saw it a bunch of times. I think I even had it on VHS for a while. I think what makes it work is that, one, the story is simple. It's almost like it's a satire. It's a horror movie, but it's also like a satirical horror movie. It's got like comedic moments, and it's kind of like, it's kind of like a metaphorical sort of story too. He also wanted to make it a little bit like a fairy tale type thing, which it's not really pounded home, but the main character, whose name is Fool, like the little boy. That's not his real name, obviously, but that's what everybody calls him.
That's his street name.
But they call him that not because they think he's a dummy, but because they're using Fool in the tarot card sense, which isn't necessarily an insult. It just means somebody that's like innocent and they're going out into the world and like, and they'll make a decision, or it's like, should they go over the cliff? Should they turn around and go back? Because there's a little bit of a tarot card thing with the beginning. I think it's like his older sister, like, so they kind of explain the name that way. So the kid, who's actually, I didn't realize, because I knew I'd seen the kid that was in this, like in other shit, like around this time. The kid's name is Brandon Adams, and he was actually, do you remember Moonwalker? And they had like a segment where there was like a little kid playing Michael Jackson as a little kid. Yeah. That was the same kid. Okay. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I knew I'd seen him in something else. But apparently I think he was in The Sandlot, and Bad News Bears maybe. And he was in like, and he's still working as far as I know. And he started out really young, like I guess in commercials and stuff.
It's funny how you just said Moonwalker, and I thought of that damn Michael Jackson DVD when it wasn't even a DVD. It was a VHS tape when it came out.
Yeah.
And how important that was when it first came out.
That was a big deal.
And it was very high tech at the time. It seemed to be a very sophisticated production. I saw that on YouTube recently. And I was just like, man, this is some cheap looking shit.
Yeah.
By today's standards, it just looks really fucking cheap.
Well, a lot of things back then did, and it's like funny to go back and re-examine it because
you're like, damn.
Yeah, because when some shit like you saw it back then and you're like, ooh, but then like you see it nowadays, you're like, oh man, I could do that in my fucking backyard.
It cost millions to make that. Right? It cost millions to make that thing.
It's crazy.
It's kind of like a video album. It was very innovative in the day.
Yeah, like not really a lot of people were doing that type of shit back then. I mean, well, it's just the same as when he did the video for Thriller and like got John Landis to direct it, and it was like this big, and he spent like what $8 million.
I think Thriller was better than Moonwalker.
I
think it was.
I don't think anybody's going to argue with you on that point.
I mean, there's a lot of good videos in it, but they're just music videos, and they're not even really like good music videos by today's standards, really.
Yeah.
Claymation and shit, weird stuff.
Yeah, they are. They are very weird.
Yeah.
Speaking of weird, this is also a very weird movie. It's like a weird premise, and the way it's the way it's done is kind of weird. But in a way, I think that's what I like about it, because it's just like this balls out strange, and like a lot of like strange shit that happens. They don't really explain it all that much, and they just kind of like leave it.
The tone of the movie, you're not really supposed to be taking this 100% seriously.
Like I said, it's kind of a satire.
It's almost kind of along the lines of maybe like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or
Part 2.
Which
was the funny one.
Right, or, just shit like that.
Yeah, and like I said, the reason that I say it's like a reverse Home Alone, now apparently, just like Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street, which I think we were talking about earlier, how he based it on a couple of newspaper articles about like those people that died in their sleep, and they're, so he got that idea. This is also based on a true news story that he read about burglars, like 2 burglars that broke into a house in Los Angeles and discovered that the couple that lived there, like the supposedly respectable middle-class couple, was keeping their 2 daughters like chained up in the basement.
Yeah.
So the irony of these like hood people like breaking into the respectable middle class house and then finding worse shit going on in the house than the burglary was very kind of like amusing to him. So he wanted to do something with that.
Yeah, and actually like the couple that's keeping all these kids captive, the guy is same actor that played Stilgar in fucking Dune, remember?
Yep.
Oh, the waters of life. Our waters shall mingle.
Yeah.
All that kind of shit. He just had a couple little...
Everett McGill, that guy's name is.
Yeah, he's in it. And then, like, the main burglar who fucking broke into there was the same dude from fucking Pulp Fiction. And,
Ving Rhames.
Yeah, Ving Rhames, yeah.
When he was like... Ving Rhames is fucking awesome, right?
He's got a cool voice and shit.
He plays Leroy.
Yeah.
I should say, too, that the weirdo couple that live in this house... Like you said, Everett McGill plays Daddy, or Man, as he's called in the credits.
Yeah,
Woman, or Man said he could, or Mommy, or Woman, is played by Wendy Roby. And the reason he wanted these two to play the batshit crazy couple that lived in this house is because, as any fans of David Lynch will know, these two played Big Ed and Nadine on Twin Peaks. They played like a married couple.
Yeah.
In which, like, Everett McGill's character, Big Ed, was like pretty sympathetic, but Nadine was bug fuck crazy.
Yeah.
So he really liked like the dynamic that they brought to Twin Peaks. So he really wanted both of them to be this weird couple that lived in this fucking house. Now,
this movie also kind of reminds me of the Castle Freak a little bit, but kind of like Castle Freak, but with a bunch of Castle Freaks in it.
Yeah, true.
It's kind of like a multiple Castle Freak.
Yeah.
It's like a castle. It's like a castle. What did I say? A castle freak fest.
It's a castle freak fest.
It's like a freak fest.
It is, yeah. It's a little bit like that because I mean the whole thing about it is that Fool, who was a little kid, apparently like his sister can't pay the rent and they're going to get evicted. And the mom has cancer or something like that and needs an operation and they can't pay for it. They can't pay the rent and they can't pay for the doctor.
Right.
So Leroy, played by Ving Rhames, comes up with the idea. He's like, hey, there's this house in town, like the big rich house. And he's like, they supposedly have this big stash of rare gold coins in there, and we're going to break in there and get them. Now, it turns out that the people, like the crazy people that live in this house, are also their landlords. And these people have been essentially driving up the rents in this neighborhood and then hoarding all the money and evicting everybody so they can tear all the buildings down and, build condos for quote-unquote clean people. Because there is a race component to this movie because, I mean, Everett McGill's character, Daddy, does use the N-word at one point.
Yeah.
And when they're saying clean people, they mean white people.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all racist and shit, but they're also fucking weird.
Yeah, they're also crazy.
They're really fucking crazy.
You find out later, like, everybody, this is a spoiler alert, I guess, but it's like, it doesn't really matter that much to the plot of the movie, because you already know they're fucking nuts.
Yeah, you know they're nuts from the second you see
them. From the second you see them.
They're like the villains. They're like something out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, basically.
Yeah, and like I said, they're really over the top. They're like, they're a caricature.
Yeah, they're funny, actually.
But the way it was done, it was kind of supposed to be like that. Like I said, it's supposed to be a satire. It's supposed to be like have sort of a weird fairy tale feel to it.
Yeah, the inside of the house and the dynamic between the couple really reminds me a lot of the Frighteners, the scary house that the woman lived in. Remember, and her ghost boyfriend.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the woman and her ghost boyfriend, a lot like that.
Yeah.
I think maybe they kind of lifted that dynamic from this movie and put it in Frighteners.
Yeah, because Frighteners was 96 when it was a little bit later.
But the interior of that house and then some of the blocking that they did, like picking each other up and swinging around in the dancing, that was in Frighteners.
True, that's true.
Yeah, and
I wonder if it was like...
I think this couple inspired that director.
It is a possibility, yeah.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen Frightener, go see Frightener. It's actually a much better movie than this. Than this one. Frighteners is kind of like the horror movie equivalent of Back to the Future 1.
Yeah, if Back to the Future was a horror movie.
If Back to the Future was a horror movie. What's the name of the kid? Marty. If Marty McFly was kind of like a paranormal investigator who could see ghosts and was kind of like a dark character. All-star cast. That movie never really got it. It never got really the credit I think that movie was due. And there's a couple different cuts to that movie. I like the longer cut.
Yeah.
The longer theatrical cut. There's a shorter cut that cuts out a lot of the comedy scenes between the ghosts that I don't like as much.
Yeah.
But I'm going to plug that movie too. Go see Frighteners if you haven't seen it.
We did review that one a while back.
We reviewed it. Yeah. You can go back and watch that review too.
Yeah.
But if you like Back to the Future and horror movies, you'd like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
This one, it's like, this was actually filmed, that was a real house that they filmed it in. Obviously, they did like art direction and production design and shit like that on it, but it was an actual house. And fun fact, that house used to be lived in by Butterfly McQueen, who was in Gone with the Wind. She was in Gone with the Wind, I think. And so that used to be her house. So they filmed it in there, and it's like this really labyrinthine, this mansion, and it has like all this shit. And so it turns out that Mommy and Daddy, who are like a parody of really religious, like, 80s religious conservatives, you know what I mean? Kind of, in a warped sort of way. Because everything is like, see no evil, hear no evil. It's like everyone's burn in hell. They keep saying burn in hell all the time. It's almost like saying woo.
It was like a kind of facade they were putting on. I don't really think that was them.
Well, yeah. Well, the way, like I said, they came across like normal, and they had a lot of money. Yeah. So like the cops would come and like be super nice to them, and it's like, even though it turned out that not only were they brother and sister, not husband and wife,
the daughter wasn't theirs either.
The daughter was not theirs.
They were like kidnappers.
The daughter, Alice, she had never been outside. She was not allowed to go outside. She was regularly beaten. There were a couple of scenes in this. The girl that played her, I think her name was AJ Langer. She was in like some other stuff later on, and she might still be working nowadays too. But there were a couple scenes in this, like particularly where Mommy like kind of grabs her and like puts her, like is like brushing her hair really hard, and then like throws her in like what's supposed to be like a tub of boiling water. Yeah. And man, that kid sold that shit. It looked like she really threw her in boilers. She just screamed her fucking head off.
Yeah. They weren't religious though.
They were. They were, because all the stuff that's all they said all the time.
Yeah, but I kind of thought that was just like a camouflage that they were using to deceive people. Remember, because the cops had come up to the door.
No, because they would say that to each other, and they would say that to the kids. Their whole thing was that they thought that children should be seen and not heard. There was like stuff all over the walls that said that. See no evil, hear no evil. That's why Alice was saying that the reason that she wasn't down in the basement with all the other children that they stole was because she just kind of like turned a blind eye and just did whatever she was told.
Well, I can't really put myself into the shoes of whoever wrote the movie or what the characters were. I didn't really think the characters took any of that seriously. I thought they were just using it to punish people and using it as like camouflage. I don't really think they were supposed to be religious people.
Yeah, they were.
Okay.
But
then it's kind of bad then.
But the thing, what you find out later on is that, I mean, because the house used to be a funeral home, and this same family had owned it for generations and generations, but they said, like, over the years, like, as the neighborhood around them got worse, and as there was, like, all this incestuous, like, going on with all the family members, like, they got crazier and crazier, and as they got crazier, they got greedier, and then that like fed back into the thing. So it's like they started taking all the money, like I said, out of the and at the end there was like they had this big fucking pile of like gold coins and cash and like all this other kind of stuff like down in the fucking basement of their house, which Fool ends up finding. But so like I said, this couple has been essentially what they wanted. Like I said, they wanted a perfect family, like a perfect nuclear family. That's what they were trying to do. So even though they were brother and sister, they had Alice, who was their perfect daughter. And then they were looking for a perfect son to go along with the perfect daughter. However, every boy that they kidnapped from the neighborhood did something to piss them off, like did something bad or, that they weren't supposed to be doing. So they would throw the kid in the basement. And then these kids are like down there, they're like all pale, they're like eating garbage. It's like every now and then if somebody comes to the house,
they're eating people too.
They kill the person and they throw the person down there, so that the kids have resorted to cannibals. And the one kid that escaped from the basement, whose name was Roach, or that's what they called him anyway. He actually had his tongue cut out because he tried to call for help one day. But he has kind of been the bane of Mommy and Daddy's existence because he got out of the basement and has been living in the walls. He can't get out of the house, though, for whatever reason. But, when Fool breaks into the house and then he can't get out because the house is, like, booby-trapped and all this other kind of shit. So Roach, like, is trying to help him get out and, like, help Alice get out, too, even though she's terrified to leave because she's never been outside. Because the mommy and daddy tell her that the outside world is like dirty, or you know what I mean? So she can't go out there, and she's like really scared. So she's never been outside. So that's kind of what so pretty much the whole movie, I mean, there's a few scenes like outside of the house, like because Fool goes in there with Leroy and like one other dude who's like helping them, or supposed to be helping them like rob the place, you know, but they both get killed. And then like Leroy finally is like, he's in there for like a really long time and like he can't get out and everything like that. But he finally escapes. He tries to take Alice. She's scared to go. And he goes back to his house. And even though he got enough gold coins to pay the rent and to pay for his mom's operation, he's like, well, you know, Roach wanted me to go back and get Alice out, and that's what I'm going to do. So he had to go back into the house and, you know, fight the crazy people to get Alice out of the house because he said he would.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like, so it's kind of like a hero's journey in a little way. Like he started out as a criminal, kind of, even though he didn't really want to do it, but he thought he didn't really have any choice. He's just a little kid. He's like 10 or 11, and he wants to be a doctor one day and all this other kind of stuff. And like, you know, all the grown-ups are telling him, it's like, how, you know, where are you going to get the money to go to medical school? It's like, you can't, you know, y'all can't even pay the rent and all this other kind of shit. So he feels like this is the only choice that he has. So he kind of gets into it, but, you know, as it goes on, he kind of finds his bravery and decides that he's going to go back to the house and fight them so he can free Alice and all the other, you know, kids that were in the basement that these people had been holding on to.
Yeah, so, now that you put it that way, the movie, now I kind of see what you're talking about in the movie. The movie never would have been made today. They wouldn't make this movie again.
Probably not.
Too many bigoted stereotypes about religious people and black people when you think about it.
Well, they would never do
this again.
They were talking about remake, because Wes Craven, before he died, because he died in 2015, he had expressed interest in remaking this and remaking Shocker, because I guess he wasn't, you know, really happy with how they came out. But I guess they never really got off the ground, and then he thought that maybe he would turn this into a series, but I guess that never ended up happening.
Yeah.
I rewatched Shocker 2 just the other day. That one I don't think holds up. Most of Wes Craven's movies I like, or that are at least watchable. That one, I don't know, I just couldn't get into it, even though I remember thinking it was okay, like back when it came out. This one I think aged a lot better. But like I said, it's pretty much, it's like I said, it's kind of like Home Alone in the sense that, except it's a kid coming into a house and there's booby traps. And then, like you said, like Everett McGill's character of Daddy, whenever he goes hunting the kid that lives in the walls, Roach, it's like he has to put on a full gimp suit. Yeah. And that is not explained, which I think is awesome. Because that's just like his hunting outfit. He puts on the gimp suit and gets his fucking sawed-off shotgun or whatever, and just like blasts holes in the wall.
It's a pump shotgun.
Like looking for this kid. And he's like blowing up the fucking house.
It's like a folding stock pump shotgun. And it got on my goddamn nerves, because from that era, every time somebody gets a pump shotgun, they say something to rack the slide.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. When normally they'd be ejecting a live round out of it when they do that. You know, it's just, it was driving me crazy when they were doing that. Every time, you tried to say some kind of one-liner and then rack the slide. But he just shot it fucking 5 seconds ago. You know what I mean? You don't see a spent case come out or anything, you know? So you know that they're just bullshitting with.
Well, like I said, it's just a movie, and like I said, this, if you go into this thinking that it's going to be,
you can't take the movie seriously.
A realistic movie. Like I said, it's supposed to be comedic. It's supposed to be satirical. It's supposed to be kind of like, yes, it has a lot of horror elements. There's actually some pretty graphic gore in this. I mean, Ving Rhames' character gets gutted like right in your face. A dog eats a hand. There's cannibalism. Right. You know, I think Ving Rhames' like half of his corpse like gets used as a puppet at one point. So there's really, really like grisly, bloody, gory effects in it. But then it also has this really strange, like, funny tone, and some people might find that off-putting. You know, and I've seen that some people, like a lot of people, really dig this movie, because I was watching like a few other, you know, horror channels, and they can, you know, talking about like Forgotten Gems or whatever, and a lot of people really like this one. And actually one guy I was watching like said this was actually his favorite Wes Craven movie. I'm like, that's a pretty bold statement, considering that Wes Craven made, you know, Last House on the Left and fucking Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street and like tons of other classics. But
I thought the movie was kind of spotty, actually.
It is a little bit, but
the pacing was a little off at certain times. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it felt like it was stretching out a little too long, and then sometimes You know what I mean? Later it would condense and then it would stretch back out again. It was just kind of, the edit wasn't real tight, I don't think. And there was tonal clash in it sometimes.
There was, like I said, you know, how you feel about that is, because movies like this, they're hard to, this is kind of like a movie where, like other ones we've reviewed, like maybe The Frighteners, like Society, movies like that are horror movies, and they have like a lot of gore and stuff like that in them, but then they also have like this really strange humor to them, and sometimes you're not sure if shit was like meant to be funny.
Yeah, that was the kind of the problem. They needed to tighten the edit up, and then they needed to kind of clearly let you know that you're not supposed to be taking this seriously all the time through the movie. Had they done that, it would have been more like the same tone as the Reanimator series.
Yeah.
Although it didn't focus in on real creative gore like Bride of Reanimator, where they're making a woman or anything, you know. When I think maybe they probably should have kind of gone a little bit more that way. It's hard to say. I was not really sold on the whole concept of the movie, the premise behind the movie. I don't know if that could be a real interesting movie. Maybe it could. Not with this tone, I don't think. It's just for me.
Yeah. It's
personal. It's going to be personal tastes. I didn't really like this one that much.
Yeah.
It was okay, but
I like this movie. I don't think it's obviously I don't think it's Wes Craven's best movie.
Yeah.
But I do think it's up there with, you know, ones that people don't really remember all that well, but is actually much better than I remembered. Like I said, you know, Shocker, not so much, because I really didn't like that one when I watched it again, sadly. But this one I liked a lot better. I had forgotten how simple the story was and how contained it was. Like, hardly any of the movie, there are like a few scenes that take place like outside of the house, like at Fool's apartment, say, or like, you know, outside in the yard or whatever. But other than that, it's like pretty much like one long kind of chase sequence, like inside the house with like the kid and like meeting up with the other kids and like running around behind the walls and like kind of running away from mommy and daddy and running away from their Rottweiler. You know, so there's that, and then like Fool leaves for a few minutes, and then he has to go back to the house, and then there's like another kind of chasing through this house. So almost the entire thing is set like an adventure movie, like inside this house where they're trying to like escape and get out of it. You know what I mean? So not a lot of it takes place out. So I had forgotten how much of the movie took place inside that house. But which, like I said, some people might think it was, you know, the way it was done was not. Because I can see the tonal clash, because you can see stuff like, you know, Ving Rhames is very funny in it, like before he gets killed. You know, the kid makes like funny, snarky comments, and, you know, obviously mommy and daddy are like wildly over the top on purpose, and, you know, and they're supposed to be like that. But then there's scenes like the one I mentioned before where like the abuse that they, you know, subject Alice to and stuff like that, which is really like not funny at all and actually kind of a little bit uncomfortable and reminded me a little bit of The Girl Next Door, that movie that was based on that horrifying Jack Ketchum novel, which was also based on a true story. But so I can see, you know, people when they say, oh, there's like a tonal clash and stuff like that, I can see that because there are a few scenes in there, particularly with the abuse of Alice and stuff, which are kind of horrifying. And then there's like all this kind of like weird over the top funny shit too.
Yeah, the movie has to pick a lane.
Yeah.
All right. Also, I just didn't really think there's enough there. I think there should have been some kind of a sci-fi or some kind of a supernatural element to the story. Should have been something that, you know, something kind of mysterious, like ghosts or you know what I mean, some kind of experiment going on or some kind of a monster or something like that. I think the movie would have been better with that in it. I mean, just personally, you know, that's just my take on it.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from.
I just thought it was just kind of not that interesting.
Yeah,
that's all.
And like I said, you know, you can see, because this is, you know, a fairly realistic, I mean, it's a realistic premise. Like you said, it doesn't have any supernatural elements to it. And it was based on a real news story that he had read that he thought was interesting. But you know what I mean? It's interestingly, this movie, I think it only cost $6 million to make. When it came out, it was actually quite a big surprise hit. It made like $31 million. It was like the top movie for like a month or more than a month even. So I think a lot of people kind of it kind of resonated with a lot of people and they liked it. I don't know. It's not as well remembered. Maybe I don't even think when we were talking about Serpent and the Rainbow, I don't even think it's as well remembered as that one, which was actually more of a serious, was a serious movie and not funny in the least. But this one, like I said, I can see how, your mileage may vary on how you handle satirical movies, and maybe one that's not entirely successful in pulling that off. But in a way, what I like about this movie is that the tone of it is just so fucking weird. And it's just like, I love that, the two actors that, played Mommy and Daddy, because I love them from Twin Peaks anyway. So I love that they just fucking went for it, man. He's just like, I'll put on a gimp suit and like fucking shoot holes.
They were able to achieve the tone you're talking about. Just they couldn't maintain it. Yeah. They would keep it, but then it would that tone would go away. Yeah. It was starting to become a little too serious, and you're like, wait a minute, hold on, is this from another movie? Yeah. And then it would go back to being kind of over the top and zany. But I didn't really find the premise that interesting. I'm just, you know what I mean? It's just like I said, your mileage may vary. Yeah. Little kids in the walls abducting kids and shit. I was just, okay. It's not a story that would stick with me. Right. Yeah.
But it's interesting, too, because I was reading like a kind of a discussion about this, which like a lot of people that were talking about different Wes Craven movies and stuff, and they had pointed out something that I had kind of forgotten a little bit about, was that even Wes Craven's first movie, Last House on the Left, which is actually a really, really horrifying, like it has like a lot of really horrifying and realistic like graphic scenes of like rape and murder and stuff like that. That also had like some really, really weird and kind of misplaced humor in it. Yeah. Like a lot of the soundtrack was like kazoo, and then like the two cops that were in it were like like just way like over the top, like trying to be funny and stuff. And some people have thought, like, I get what Wes Craven is going for. He doesn't do that accidentally. Like, he does that for a purpose. And I get what he's going for, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I love Wes Craven, and I've liked most of his movies, like I said, are at least watchable, and he's made like a few that were actually pretty fucking great. But, just like, kind of like Carpenter, his output is a little uneven. Carpenter it seemed like all of his movies were good up until a certain point, and then they were just kind of spotty.
Well, I think Carpenter subbed a lot of that shit out. I bet you he wasn't even involved.
The later ones, maybe.
Yeah, like Ghosts of Mars. I bet you he wasn't even on set.
Maybe not, because it does kind of seem like... I think
other people were doing that.
Yeah. Whereas I feel like Wes Craven stuff is kind of like more, good one, great one, kind of questionable one, good one. So it was kind of like more up and down, whereas John Carpenter was like great ones, great ones, great ones, great ones. I
think what happened to Carpenter is that The Thing came out, and The Thing was a fucking masterpiece, and it didn't get recognized, and he was just like, fuck it.
Well, he said that he thought that was a great fucking movie, and he was really like bummed out.
It was a great movie.
And he was right, and he was like vindicated. But it took. I can understand that, because you've done something, you think this is the best fucking thing that I've ever done. Yeah. You put it out, and everybody's like, meh. You know what I mean? So I can see how that would bum you out. Yeah. And it's like, even though people recognized that The Thing was a fucking masterpiece, it took long enough that I think that. The sting from that would still be just like, now you realize it's a great movie. Fuck all y'all.
Escape from New York is a masterpiece.
Yeah, well, like I said, a lot of his movies are, probably up until the 90s. I mean, I liked most of his movies from the 80s, maybe except maybe Escape from LA and stuff. But he also made They Live, and he made he made good shit in the 80s too. In the late 80s, rather.
I've kind of gotten a new appreciation for Escape from LA.
Yeah, that's what you said.
It's a parody. It's a comedy.
Yeah.
If you just take it like that, you know what I mean?
I always kind of wonder, though. It's like, I always kind of wonder, this is kind of like the fucking Tommy Wiseau defense, but it's like, if you make a movie like Tommy Wiseau's The Room, and, everyone just thinks it's like the worst thing ever, but also so terrible that it's awesome, like Birdemic, say. Yeah. And then, what maybe not Tommy Wiseau, I don't think he did that, but, some filmmakers will come out later and go, oh, well, it was meant to be a parody. It was meant to be funny. It's like, it wasn't. But it's like, after it came out and everybody made fun of it, then they said, no, I did that on purpose. Well, I think it's like really hard to say if they really did mean.
Well, I think it was two different eras, you know what I mean? In a way, Escape from New York was kind of a commentary on New York itself, that New York was a trashy place back then. Yeah. So showing it as a prison full of cannibals and crap like that was in a way kind of like a dark commentary, dark parody of New York.
Yeah.
But then he takes it the other way. L.A. is fucking trashy, wild, dumb place.
Yeah.
It's an idiocracy. So you take that, and then what do you have? You know, when you escape from L.A., you have like tribes of plastic surgeons and big teddy girls made up out of other people and weird shit, you know what I mean? And surfers.
Yeah.
And, you know, all these Hollywood kind of laughable stereotypes are, you know, turned all the way up to like 10 in this, you know, kind of prison-like version of L.A.
Yeah.
And that's what you come up with. That L.A. is a colorful place. So if it were to become a prison, it would just be funny.
It would be just like ramped up to like the nth degree.
I think that's what he meant by it. And they were just, you know, Krusell was involved in it, and they were just they wanted to put a lot of elements in it. There's a lot in it.
Yeah.
There's a lot happens in that movie. Not so much in Escape from New York. Not as much happens in it. It's slower, more drawn out. It's not even a lot of action in it. It's like a pseudo-action movie.
That's what I like about it, though. It kind of like takes its time, you know.
It had a certain tone to it, you know, and people prefer that, I think, to Escape from L.A. I did.
Well, yeah.
I can watch Escape from L.A. now and just kind of laugh.
Yeah. I think the last time that you put it on and I was kind of watching it, it's like, I don't know, I just found my kind of attention wandering, and then I was like, I don't think I can watch this anymore. It's like, I don't have a problem with parodies or anything. I love John Carpenter. I love Kurt Russell and stuff. But
I think they wanted to show a lot of things because they had money.
Yeah.
And once you start showing all that stuff, the reality of seeing guys on hang gliders shooting at people on the ground, it's fucking hilarious, you know.
It's like, well, it sounded so cool in the script, and
or or guys trying to escape on a surfboard on a tidal wave, you know. I think it reads one way, but then when you see it, you try to edit that in a movie, it just looks like a cartoon. They shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But that was the movie that he wanted to
That's
make.
kind of, and we've talked about that before, particularly in regards to like Stephen King stuff, where it's like, you know, shit that's cool in a book.
Yeah.
You put it on a screen, and suddenly it's just really not so cool anymore.
Less is more.
Looking at you, hedge animals.
Yeah. Less is more, and I probably would have put like a lot less in Escape from L.A.
Yeah.
A lot less in it, and made the tone a little bit darker.
I mean, I would argue that a good movie could be made of that.
Yeah, I could make it.
I mean, I would argue that a good movie could be made from pretty much any premise if you know what you're doing.
Well, he said Escape from L.A., and I think that's a major problem right there.
Yeah.
Okay, I wouldn't have done an Escape from New York. If I did Escape from New York, I wouldn't have done Escape from L.A. after that. All right, I would have done something more like some kind of a mission up in, you know, like Escape from Alaska or Escape from, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Escape from the Earth. So shit like that.
Yeah, see, I like that idea.
Yeah, Escape
from the Earth. And make the story different.
Yeah,
like
make it totally different.
I mean, Escape from L.A. was essentially the same story over again.
Yeah, and it was like a prison break movie.
Yeah.
All right, escaping from prison. What are the chances of him of going to prison again and having to escape from another prison that's like that?
That's what I mean.
Doesn't make any sense.
It
makes more sense where it was something kind of like Metal Gear Solid, which is a video game based on.
Yeah.
On Escape from New York, you know, where the government or somebody in the government wants him to do a favor that's kind of illegal. Something like that.
Yeah, that does seem like that would be more...
a one-man mercenary mission.
That's but like a different one, like totally not different. A prison break. Yeah.
Right, totally different. Yeah. Like stealing something.
Yeah.
And that can cause... Stealing something from a secure installation.
Yeah, yeah.
And that would have been, you know...
Somebody get on that.
You're right. That's what I would have done.
But yeah, so if you are into Wes Craven and you haven't seen The People Under the Stairs in a long time, like I said, since it came out in 1991, it's on Shudder at the moment, as are several other Wes Craven movies, so you might want to revisit it. Like I said, I saw it a bunch of times back in the day, but I'd kind of forgotten about it, and I ended up it ended up being better than I remembered. However, like I said, shocker, not so much, but you can watch that one too if you want. And I'm sure that one has its defenders also. But yeah, so definitely check it out if you're a Wes Craven fan. Like I said, it's on Shudder right now.